I'd like to congratulate the CSIRO on the forum that we're having over these couple of days, and particularly it's one of the comments that Phil made in his opening talk, continuing the traditions of MacArthur, and he liked to have a bet. By having this forum at this time of year, it's actually paid off, and we've actually managed to get everyone here. Now, we have had quite a bit of weather recently, and I had a few questions about how do we manage to get a leave pass here, and yeah, we have been very busy, but Kevin, we ran all the fires through Phoenix and none of them are going to go anywhere, so we're all here today, and I'd just like to thank Lawrence and Marie, and there's quite a few fire behaviour analysts we've got in the room who've been working very hard. I don't know why the Bureau keeps choosing to have this bad weather on weekends, and particularly late last night and early in the morning, some of us were still working on a few of these fires. And yeah, it's quite interesting how in the last few years we've had the increasing importance of the fire behaviour analysis role, and how much more reliance there is on using the science and applying it, and how it's actually how much it's influencing decision-making process. And really, what I want to talk about in the couple of minutes we've got before beer time is how we've been applying it and some of the decisions and how it's been affecting us. Now, most of what I'll be focusing on is looking at the forest fuels and the grass fuels and how that's affecting rate of spread. But particularly the fires we had yesterday, we've now got a new fuel type that we need to look at. And we actually had a running car fire that went through, and it actually took out over 50 cars. And so that's definitely, I'm not sure whether, Jim, you've got that as one of our... I looked at your table and I didn't see cars in there. All right.
I'll put that in next time.
So, anyway, that's something just to keep on the cards. But I think we're finding grass and forest hard enough. Now, as far as grass fuel goes, we've been going through a process of using, and particularly it's been adopting and applying some CRC research into operational use. And it's interesting, the science is done, but then we have to actually apply it, and there's a lot of decision-making points along the process. And Joe, I think you said whether you like it or not, we've got an increasing influence of politics. Who likes the increasing influence of politics? I think most of them are in the other box. So, and I suppose there's increased scrutiny and increased, accountability, particularly with this higher visibility that we have. And so we're now using this satellite process, and the decision-making points we need to come along with. Okay, so we've got a set of formula that we got, but then now we've got gaps. You've got gaps because of cloud, and so then. Well, then we need to find a way of filling in that data. How do we actually know, and what sort of process do we use looking at historical? How old is that data as to, is it reliable as to what we're doing? Once we come up with a process then of filling in those gaps and you've got your full data coverage, the next thing we need to do is mask that, because obviously where you've got canopies polluting the cells, then you need to take the effects of those canopies out. But you actually you need to make decisions along the process of how much canopy, and you can be super conservative and say we'll take every pixel out that has a little bit of canopy effect, but then you end up with very little image coloured in, and so that's your next decision step point of the process. Then we actually, once we've got, as Sarah said, we've got that very high resolution curing data, then we've got to convert that into the curing that we put into the 6 kilometre grids, and then how do you actually determine how you fill in those gaps now once you've taken out those cells that are polluted by canopy, and how do you, and then once you've actually come up with that, what number do you use as your actual curing? Is it your average? Is it your 90th percentile? And what is, and there's quite a lot of important decision-making processes you've got to make along the lines. Then even having said that, how current is your data? How frequently do we get the uploads? Something we learnt to, whereas, these Americans are going through their problems over in the US, and all the government employees get to have an extended holidays. Well, guess what? NASA's not given us satellite curing data. So, and we've actually, so there's issues with having dependency on this sort of data and how to use it and get back up so that we can, if we actually commit and go down that path, making sure that we've got processes in place, that we've got backup, we've still got field reports, we've got other ways to deal with that sort of thing. Grass fuel loads. This is an output we have of the current grass fuel loads we're using across the state. It's still another challenge for us. It's quite a coarse level, and how do you interpret that across to a 6 kilometre grid that we're using in as part of our process for weather forecasting? But then how do you actually then use that for when we're doing the more fine-scale fire behaviour work? Next thing we've been doing a bit of work is looking at forest fuel loads, and there's been a bit of discussion about some of the work that Penny Watson's been done and we have put quite a lot of effort into trying to better understand how we can model and understand the actual amount of fuel loads that we have in the landscape, and that fuel load quantity is something that is quite an important metric that we use for our fire behaviour analysis. But we're also using it for other areas like our prescribed burn planning. What are our triggers and the points at which you say within the landscape it now requires treatment, and better monitoring and measuring that using the models that we have. And so we've had to spend quite a bit of effort into getting the best resolution vegetation types as well as fire history maps, then apply that to the fuel curves. And now this is something we'll be using for our landscape scale bushfire risk management planning. We have more fine scale community protection planning that we do, as well as our individual prescribed burn planning and monitoring. One of the products you can produce from a thing like this is actually tracking and seeing how much fuel have I got each year? Are we generally increasing or decreasing? And looking at where we are in the landscape with the amount of fuel that we have. So these fuel products then feed into our weather forecasting, and as agencies, Sarah mentioned that there's the work the Bureau does, and as fire agencies work quite closely in making sure that we provide the best and most accurate data. And the actual outputs of what happens to this has very significant impacts, and when we need to make quite important decisions at the level of total fire bans, which can affect people's livelihoods, as well as if you're deciding whether you're going to harvest, if you're going to be insured or not, as well as I think Starkey, wherever you are, you can still have your barbecue. Then now in this new landscape we have of the higher ratings, whether we're actually going to close schools, we're going to shut down nursing homes. There's quite significant operational implications that come from the ratings that we get, and the fuel loads that we put into it is quite an important variable that can affect the outcome of our decisions. The fuel load also goes into some of our preparedness and planning products, and this is an example of one of the products we're working on at the moment, which is a burn frequency analysis. And basically what we do in the morning is we burn the state, we set up a 10 kilometre grid across the state and just look at how many fires are going to overlap. We can look at the intensities and all sorts of other variables. Now, again, the accuracy of our fuel loads is going to affect that model. The other thing we've spoken about is how we apply and use this for fire behaviour analysis. And really there's two arms to the fire behaviour analysis that we use operationally in New South Wales. There's the computer simulation, which is principally using the Phoenix fire spread model. And we also do manual hand counts. And the two of them are done independently, and they're used as sort of a check against each other. Now, fundamentally, they're using still the same engine of the MacArthur formula behind them, but it's still, particularly because of the potential errors that we have with fuel loads, it's something that we need to have that level of independence and check that we use through the process when we do that. Sarah, I think, mentioned the prescribed burn forecast tool, which is another product we've been working on. I like to call it the Goldilocks map. Is it too hot, too cold, or just right? and or is it too wet, too dry, just right? And so within this is quite an important tool that we're using strategically to look out 7 days into the future as to when are the times that we should be getting ready for prescribed burning, and looking at where are the optimal places within the state that we could be looking at providing assistance and resourcing for prescribed burn. And there's a zoomed in picture. You might have actually even seen this before today. And then the final thing, interesting, another part of fuels and understanding for operational use is smoke dispersion modelling. And one of the operational applications we've been looking at is applying this dispersion models to have a better capacity to warn and notify communities when we're undertaking prescribed burning, and also looking at the potential impacts of smoke from wildfires on communities. And part of the inputs to this model is just an understanding of the fuel loads and the quantity and areas we're burning, and we can produce quite high resolution products that show us where these plumes are moving around the landscape. And I think that'll do us now.